Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We are with our now enhancement set having 5 sets. Stalker soloing at level 47 plus 3s, and we are seeking clues on the psychic plane for this sort of psychic story line from Harvey Mailer. And as we go, I'm going to actually continue a little bit of the story that we were talking about last time, where I was just not the story, the idea I talked about last time that hobbies are very good for our health, both mental and physical. I definitely need City of Heroes today. I gave my zoology class their second exam today, and I got the sense that some of them didn't do too well. Now, this class, I'm obviously going to tell my side of the story. This class there's no textbook because it's actually this really old class that used to be Biology Part 2, Bio 1, Bio 2, right? And then we created a Biology 2 that was slightly different and sort of semi-retired zoology. And then when we needed some new sophomore level classes, the department said, can't you please bring back zoology as a sophomore level course so that we have some more classes for the students to take? And zoology was a very popular course when it was a freshman course when I was teaching it. The students did quite well and they liked it a lot, and I was actually one of the more popular teachers. So I said, well, you really can't, there's no textbook that I can use because ordinarily, I'm just looking for these things that we're trying to find. Ordinarily, zoology is taught either as invertebrate or vertebrate zoology. And I said we could make new courses, and the department said we don't want to do that right now because we're going to be changing the major in a few years, and we'll make new courses. And so if you know anything about colleges, you know that none of that ever happened. And I've just been teaching this bizarre sophomore level biology for which there is no textbook, zoology for which there is no textbook possible because no one makes one. Right? Every zoology textbook is really just a Bio 2 textbook. And I can't use an invertebrate zoology textbook or a vertebrate zoology textbook because zoology is both, and the students sure as heck don't want 2 textbooks. Are you seeing this? I don't see a single one of the memories. I don't hear any glowies. Where are these things? This isn't that big of a zone. So there's no textbook possible. You have to take my word on it. And I thought there was usually one in this graveyard. So there's no textbook possible. So the students are basically stuck just with my PowerPoint slides and my lectures. So this group of students, this generation of students who, when you assign them textbook readings, refuse to read the textbook and complain about having to read the textbook and don't want to buy the textbook, and you have to basically pull teeth to get them to buy a textbook. You'd think they'd be thrilled. Here's one. That there's no textbook to buy. And instead, what they do is complain that we don't have a textbook and we need a textbook. It's too hard to learn without a textbook. Can't you provide what the textbook would have provided if there was a textbook? So all of the little textbook activities and stuff. And I said to them, realistically, I can't. Right? These are done by a whole staff of people. I can't do that. Well, you could create something for us. So, okay. Before the second exam, they said, we don't really know what you want from us on the exam, and we're not sure, and can't you help us? So I said, okay. What I did for them was I created a practice exam. It was literally the exam, right? So the exam said on it, for these 4 types of invertebrates, 4 groups of invertebrates, phyla of invertebrates like the sponges, phylum Porifera, the flatworms, phylum Platyhelminthes, etc. I gave them a list of 4, and I said pick any one and give me a list of their features of like what makes them that, or we call them the shared derived features. So all they had to do was one. And then I gave them a group of 4 more and said, pick one of these and give me their shared drive features. Guys, it's just a list of 3 or 4 things, just bullets. And so that was the exam. And the practice exam, I just gave them a single question and said, pick any 2 of the groups we learned about and give me their shared drive features. So basically, it's the same exam with the serial numbers filed off. And apparently that wasn't enough either. So these students took this test today, and they don't even know the results because I haven't graded it yet. I was busy teaching other classes. And some of them must already know that they messed up, because I got an email from one of them claiming to be writing on behalf of the class. I have no idea whether this is true for anyone but her and the friend of hers that she CC'd on this email. But she said, we need more, you've got to help us, we need a more specific study guide, and so on and so forth. And so we've leveled up, excellent. So now they want me to, I already have a study guide, they want more detail. So I wrote her back, she hasn't answered me yet, and this is going to be a really interesting little exercise to see if she answers me at all, because I suspect that she won't. She asked for a more detailed study guide to help her. And so I wrote her back. I already have a study guide that literally tells them what I want them to do, be able to list the shared derived features of the phyla we studied. They want something more specific. I said, you want me to list them out? Why can't you look at your notes to see it, right? So what's fun about the way students deal with this is they frequently will, they say that you're not giving us what we want, but when you ask them, you try to pin them down on, well, what is it you want? They don't actually know. Because what they know is they don't want to fail, right? And we want you to give us something that will make it so we don't fail, but they can't actually say it that way, A, because I don't even know if they've articulated it in their own minds, and B, that would sound childish, right? Like, the thing you need to do so that you don't fail is study. I can't give you something that will make you not fail. Not realistically. So she said she wants it, so I wrote her back, and I said, all right, I can try to give you something, but I would like you to meet with me to help me learn what it is that you want. And I said, please bring me from another class an example of a study guide that is the way you want it so I can see what you're talking about. I would be willing to bet there is no other class that has such a study guide, and she isn't going to bring me one, because there isn't one. A, because I don't think anybody's made what she's asking for, because what she's basically asking for is for me to give her the test questions and answers so that she can memorize them, and nobody does that. And B, I don't think she really knows what she wants, which is why so far, it's almost 10 o'clock at night, and I answered her at like 1 in the afternoon. She hasn't responded. And guys, I'm betting, and I'll let you know in the next episode or two, she's never going to respond. Because when I put these students on the spot and say, what is it that you actually want, most of the time they can't tell me. Because what they want is not to fail. But when I'm saying, well, what do you need me to give you so you don't fail, they don't really, other than saying curve it, they don't really have an answer. It's sort of an interesting thing. But I'm aggravated enough with my class that I just felt like I needed to get in to City of Heroes and play some COH. So now what are we going to do with our slots? Actually, I think I'm going to get out of here. First, I want to check the base, because I think we have some of the enhancements sets I'm thinking of putting on my toggles, and I want to check the stats and see if it's worth it. So what we're looking at here, possibly, is either Red Fortune, there was another one, wasn't there, or Kismet. So Red Fortune needs 6 slots, and it would give me recharge time and a little bit of defense. The resistance is trivial. Kismet only needs 5 total enhancements, improves the recharge time of all my powers and my regeneration, as well as recovery. I like this better. We have 2 of them. So they have defense endurance, defense recharge, endurance recharge, defense endurance recharge, and +2 hit. This is endurance recharge, giving us 21% of each. This is defense recharge, giving us 13% defense. So the defenses, it looks like they'll only give us, there are only 3 defenses. If they all give us roughly 13%, and actually the one that's triple won't, it'll be less than that. It's only going to enhance the defense by about 30%. And our current enhancement on these is 60%. That's not worth it. So that tells me right there that it's not worth putting this set on there. Let's take a look at what other defense sets there are. Maybe there's one that could be worth it. But we're going to need something that gives us 60% in the actual defense category, regardless of what the sets give us. So let's take a look at the recipes and look at the defense sets. I felt like there was one that I used to like. Luck of the Gambler. Maybe that was it. So this one gives you defense endurance. So this is 6 slots. Defense endurance would give us 16. Well, let's look at 50. Defense endurance would give us about 16%. This one would get us up to 29%. Right? This one would get us up to 45%, right? And this one would get us right on up to 60. So this is worth it. Luck of the Gambler is worth it. How much does this thing cost? 2.5 mil for that one. This one's going to be expensive, probably 6 mil. These are very expensive. So Luck of the Gambler is worth it. But it's going to cost us, let's add this up, for level 50 guys, 6 million, 7.5, I'm just rounding, 9, 10, 12, 13-ish, and then about 15 mil. We could afford it. You know, it does improve accuracy. That's one of the things we want to stack. I'm not really in love with I don't care about the resistance. I mean, it's nice to have the resistance, but it's only going to bring a resistance from like 7% to 11% or something. It's not going to do that much. But the accuracy is nice. And the bonuses will be nice. Recharge we don't really need. But this, all your powers go up by 7.5% on recharge speed, in addition to the 9% accuracy. So I feel like this is decent. Reactive defense, what does that give you? Recharge time. But you can get almost that much from the other one. And it doesn't give me the accuracy. I think Luck of the Gambler is what we're going to want. Which means we need 6 slots on each of those toggles if I want to do it. So that's really what I was checking, because I know there were some 5-slot sets and some 6-slot sets. I don't want the 5-slotters. So now I have to figure out what do I want to do, because this is level 48. We've got 48 and 50. We have 6 slots left to put on. If I put 4 on these guys, that leaves me with 2. I could put 2 into Laser Beam Eyes. I could put 2 into Overload and 6-slot it. I could put a couple into Disrupt, although I never use that. I could put 3 here and do 2 and 1. I'm not sure I think I'm going for the toggles. I'll leave the health off of this. The laser beam eyes, like, they're just not important enough for what this character is doing. It's nice to have that little range attack. I wish I had a few more slots. I'd love to put triple damage on it, but I'm not going to sacrifice. These things are much more important to this character. And I think we want to. I want to stack what I've got, right? The accuracy and the recharge, which this does. So I think we're going for it. So let's go ahead and do 2 in kinetic shield and 1 into power shield, and then we'll finish it at level 50. And I don't know what we're going to get for level 49. So we're not going to worry about the sets right now because we don't even have all our slots into that second power. We're just going to continue on our missions. And now another defeat all. Oh, these are exhausting. Okay, off to Paris Park. Let's just use this little thing. Okay. Yeah, so my students tend to frustrate me. And they remind me of my players, right? My best friend did this same exact thing to me, right? He said that I wasn't doing enough with the character backgrounds and like putting enough hooks into the character stories, and in particular was talking about his own character. But when I said to him, what would, if I did what you want, what would it look like? He really wasn't able to tell me either. It was mostly like, I don't know what it would look like to do what I want, but I know what you're doing isn't what I want. And that's, knowing that what I'm doing isn't what he wants is valuable information, but it's not enough for me to change it to what he does want, right? There's a very high probability that if I change it without knowing what he does want, I'm going to change it into something else he's not happy with. Particularly because he couldn't tell me what he wanted in the first place. It's sort of like me saying to you, I want you to buy me something for Christmas, and when you do buy me something for Christmas, I say I wasn't happy with the gift, and you say, well, what did you want? And I say, well, I don't know, but what you gave me isn't it, right? My students used to do this. One of their favorite phrases at my school. I don't know if other universities have the same. I guarantee you, students at every university are doing the same kind of thing. But I don't know if they use different language at different schools, or if this is just an undergraduate thing that you see a lot. But when a student is bombing a class, it's extremely common for the student to come to my office and say, can you work with me? Usually this is a student who's been skipping stuff. I have just had a student email me. She said, I was sick today for the exam. Can I take a makeup? I said, all right. I checked her schedule. She's got time Thursday. I said, come to my office Thursday at 2 o'clock. I'll give you the makeup. You need documentation, but come take the makeup. We can deal with the documentation later. Don't wait. I had one student do this to me one time, waited 3 weeks to take a makeup because it took them that long to get the documentation from the court. And I'm like, no, come take the makeup. I won't put it in the grade book, but at least the test is done and you're not holding on to it. So I said, come Thursday. I don't know if she's going to. But when I checked in my grade book, she has a 0 on every quiz all semester long. She's never come to class all semester except the first exam. And then she didn't come and she got a 25 on that, of course, because she never came to class. And then she didn't take the second exam, and she expects me to believe she has some emergency today when she hasn't come to class any of the other days either. So I'm assuming she just cut. But let's say she does have documentation, right? So this is a student with a 25 on the first test, 5 zeros in a row, who hasn't been in class and is going to come and leave and turn in a blank test that she's not going to be able to answer. This is the sort of student who, after getting her second 25, or 10, or whatever she gets, comes to the professor and says, can you work with me? I know that I didn't study, and I know I haven't been coming to class, and I know what I've been doing, but can you work with me? Right? And one of the things I've learned that completely checkmates students when they ask you this question is I say to them, sure, I'll be happy to work with you. And they get a big smile on their face usually. And then I say, what would that look like? And they'll say, what do you mean, usually? And I say to them, what can I do? What specific actions could I take that you would consider to be working with you? What would count as working with you? What do you want me to do that you would consider I'm working with you if I did it? And guys, I've asked this, I don't know how many times over the last 15 or 16 years when I finally figured out to ask it, I've never had a student be able to tell me what they want. Because they don't know. What they know is they don't want to fail. And so, can you work with me so I don't fail is as far as their brain has gotten. You say, well, what do you want me to do that would be working with you? Well, I think mostly what they want me to do is let them pass with their 25, right? Just don't fail me. That would be working with you. I'm like, well, they know they can't really ask for that because they have a 25 or a 50. I've never had a student say, well, working with me would be, letting me retake these exams over the next 3 weeks and prove to you that I can really do it, and maybe giving me a paper to write, and that sort of thing. They never say that. They always just say, I don't know, right? They just look at me with this sort of very stunned expression on their face, and they don't know what to tell me, right? Because what they want me to do is, working with them is just don't fail us, right? That's what they want. And so, yeah, it definitely reminds me of, players in a campaign, right? Where they'll say that they don't like something in the campaign, like my best friend said, I don't think you're doing enough to get my character's background involved. And when I say to him, well, what is it that you want me to do instead? His answer was I don't know, but not what you've been doing. And I actually said to him, he had written it out, because if he had said it aloud, I would say, did you hear what you just said? I actually typed in, I said, could you please scroll up and read what you just typed? And he was like, what? And I said, you just told me you don't know what you want me to do something, but you don't know what. How am I supposed to know if you don't know? And he kind of wrote, LOL, I guess that's fair. At least he has the self-awareness that my students don't have to say, yeah, that's true. I don't know what I want you to do. So, it's a moving goalpost. I don't know what I want you to do, but I'm upset that you're not doing it. Literally. Students will say that, that's what they're telling me. I don't know what I want you to do, but I'm frustrated that you haven't done it. So it's going to be really interesting to see if this whole class of students, which my guess is 3 or 4 people who are failing. I mean, I know 2 of them, right? And I know one of them is an absolutely frustrating person. I have not had to deal with her. She's been in class a handful of times, but she doesn't say anything in class, and I haven't had to deal with her. But one of the other professors is her advisor, and oh my gosh, she and her parents simply cannot accept the fact that when she transferred, the registrar told her some things that were incorrect, and she's going to have to be here for an extra semester that she didn't think she was going to be here for, right? Apparently she's a transfer student from out of state. She came over this summer. Nobody in the department was around, and the registrar shouldn't have done this, but they took it upon themselves to review the kids' transcript and stuff, and they said, based on credits, you have 90 credits, you can take 15 credits a semester, that'll be 120, and you can graduate. And they didn't look at the major requirements to see, will she have all the bio classes she needs to be a bio major and finish? And she won't, because these classes have prerequisites and stuff on them. She can't possibly finish. So the family is trying to hold the university to the statement that the registrar made, which is, if you just take 30 more credits, you can graduate. And our department chair and my colleague, who's her advisor, have patiently tried to explain to this kid and her mother that the registrar made a mistake. They've showed her the bio major and how it aligns and how she's missing these courses, and she can't possibly take them all in 1 year. And they don't want to accept it. And so this has been going on since August. It is now March, and they're still trying to argue that she should graduate in May, even though she's missing 2 or 3 courses. They want us to let her graduate without the major completed and still be a bio major, which is patently absurd, right? And the reason isn't I know enough bio, I passed enough courses, I passed courses at other institutions, I'm really good at bio. It's not that. It's because the registrar told me I could. Right? So if you ask her what would it look like to work with you, she'd say, "Let me graduate," right? But this student is one of the two who signed their name to this email. Well, she was in the CC of the email. The email was that signed your class, as if the whole class believes this. I know for a fact there are students who don't, because those students are getting A's, and they're probably very happy with what I've been doing because they've been able to get A's, right? So I doubt that they would agree, and my guess is the overwhelming majority wouldn't agree. But this one young lady, yeah, I know she's in on it because she doesn't want to accept that anything happens that she doesn't want, right? Like, she already doesn't want to accept that she can't graduate. She's certainly not going to want to accept that she got a bad grade on a test, which will hurt her graduation chances even more, right? So I'm sure she's part of it, but I don't know about the rest of the class. The weird thing is, the student who emailed me, she actually, when she handed her test in, she had a big smile on her face and she said, "I think I did a lot better on this test." And I said, "Oh, what'd you do? Why?" Said, like, "What happened?" She said, "I studied." Well, okay. So if you got a 45 or something, which she got on the first test because you didn't study, and you think you did okay on this test because you did study, why are you telling me that I didn't give you the tools that you needed to pass, right? You, by your own admission, failed the first test because you didn't study, right? So these students saying, "Give me a study guide, a better study guide." Well, that only works if you study, right? A study guide is for studying. If you didn't study, what good does the guide do? I also looked her up. She's been coming to class, but on my quizzes, I give them, and this again, I feel like I'm being super generous. Somehow they don't see it that way, and I don't know how you wouldn't think this is generous. The quizzes, which I give at 9:30 in the morning when the class starts to make sure everybody's there, doesn't work. Half of them just take a 0 on it rather than come to class at 9:30. But I give out this quiz. It's got 3 questions. You get 7 out of 10, a 70% for signing your name, and then plus 1, plus 1 out of 10, plus 10% per question right. So if you get 1 right, you get an 80, 2 right, you get a 90, and 3 right, you get 100. So this young lady who's been taking these quizzes all semester, she's gotten a 7 on every single one, which means she's not gotten a single question right all semester long. This is supposedly my fault. The average on this thing is a 9, so most people are getting 2 out of the 3 right. But here's the thing. She hasn't actually gotten anything wrong. Because I remembered her when I saw those scores. I remembered what she's been doing, right? I got 45 students, so I can't always remember everybody's quiz scores. But when I saw all those 7s, I said, "Oh, that's right. This is the student who's turned every single quiz in with her name on it and all the questions blank." Guys, the questions are like, name this animal, define this word, and for this group, out of the 5 shared features that we discussed, just give me any one. And she just leaves them blank. So I know she's not studying, because anybody who's studying wouldn't leave them blank. Who's over here? Why is there somebody over here? Didn't I clear this out? See, this is what I hate about defeat. Okay, so one thing I would love to say to the designers of these missions, defeat all missions should not have, well, I just missed these guys, I guess, but defeat all missions should not have patrols, because I know sometimes they have patrols in them, and they absolutely shouldn't. Right, because if I go one way and the patrol goes the other way, I miss the patrol, and then I have no idea where it is, and now I can't find the rest of the enemies to defeat. I thought I had come over here. So yeah, I don't know. But I definitely needed City of Heroes tonight. I'm telling you, I never planned. I'm in my 50s. And I always thought I was, I remember watching a news story. And I pay attention to stuff like this because my mother died of dementia. So I certainly don't want to get it. And I watched a news story once about I think I've mentioned this even, that some very elderly people who had never Um, Mistress of Memory. Okay, this is the one I thought we were on the last time with the Madam of Mystery. Um, they had some older people who had never gotten any symptoms of memory loss and cognitive decline. And the one common thing in all of them is they all kept working into their 80s and 90s. The one guy was a lawyer. He was like mid 80s, completely lucid, really good. He was still working 2 or 3 days a week, few hours a day. He couldn't drive anymore because of his eyesight, but he still had his brains and cognition and everything. And so they gave him a car service where he used to work, his law firm. And come on with the misses, 95%. They would bring him into work. He would work in the library writing up precedents and stuff like that for the other partners in the law firm. And then he would go to lunch with them or whatever, and then he would go home. And he just did this a few days a week. He said, I don't have the energy to do it every day, but by doing that, it kept his mind sharp. Right? So I saw this and I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I won't, you know, retire until I'm a bit older, and maybe I'll try to see if I can continue teaching as an adjunct or something after I retire. Guys, I don't know. I don't know if I can take the students anymore. They're really different from how they used to be. I never used to have this much trouble. And it's not just me. Lots of people have been complaining. Lots of teachers have been complaining, and I saw a news story about the insane attrition rate now of teachers and how many teachers are just giving up on the profession, and that they said we're going to have a massive teacher shortage in not too long because so many teachers are just like they can't take it anymore. The students don't want to learn. They can't read. They don't want to learn to read. They they don't they they don't want to actually do what the teachers are asking. They whine, they complain, and they won't actually learn anything. They would rather complain than learn. And yeah, I know students have always been a little like this, but it's bad enough that the teaching people in the teaching profession are starting to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I understand them now because I don't know if I want to do it anymore for much longer either. I might just try to take a fairly early retirement, like as early as I can afford to take. Alright, so we got rid of her. And that guy, we don't need to get the phantoms. They're irrelevant. That's not part of the defeat all. Yeah, I don't know where the rest of the villains are. This might have to be an autocomplete. God, these outdoor mission defeat all where you can't find them. I really would love to have a conversation with whoever designed these and say, why? Why would you design this and think it's a good idea? To frustrate the crap out of players who are just trying to complete a mission and make it so that there's this little needle in a haystack that we have to find. Do you actually think this is fun? I don't know. Maybe some people do. I would love to know what percentage of players absolutely hate this. Clicked on the wrong thing. I want to show always. There we go. And how many players think this is the best type of mission ever? Like, defeat all is fine when you can find them, right? But not being able to find them is super aggravating. Yeah, I don't think the phantasm has anything to do with it. I don't think I can damage them anyway. Aren't they immune? I think so. Sometimes I try to get up high and see if I can, you know, by targeting, and I don't see anything. So let's see. We have a little bit here that hasn't been explored, it looks like. But I don't see anybody around. And we have a little bit here that hasn't been explored. That's just the rock. But I don't see anybody around. So we have some here that hasn't been explored. That's the forest. Oh, there we are. Oh, COH devs. You gotta be kidding me! How many times did I miss Assassin Strike at 95% in this mission? That's just ridiculous. Alright, let me remember to go and turn this back to show on mouse over or selected. That's what I like. Alright, out we go. Yeah, so guys, I would say, please, if you're ever trying to make a request of your GM, please be specific about what you want, right? Do not say to the GM, I don't know what I want, but you're not giving it to me. That is an unhittable target. And it's not really fair to ask somebody to do something for you that you don't know what it is. Hang on, we gotta call him. It'd be like you guys on the channel saying, we want you to make new content, and I say, what? And you say, well, we don't know what content we want you to make, but we don't want you to make City of Heroes anymore. Okay, well, what do you want me to make? Well, we don't know. We can't tell you. Well, then I'm going to be, it's going to take me an awfully long time to randomly come up with the thing that you actually want. Right? This sort of, I don't know what I want, but I'll know it when I see it. Not helpful to a GM. Just like it's not helpful to a teacher. So be specific. If you want more combat, tell the GM, we want more combat. Right? I mean, I've been saying to myself that I'm going to... Oh, shoot. I just wanted to talk to him. I'm going to... We're going to need to have some kind of a session -1. Or session infinity, or I don't know what we're gonna call it. But I need to have a long, heartfelt conversation with my players and say to them, we need to talk about challenge level in the game. About what level of challenge you guys would like to have. Do you want difficult fights? Do you want fights that will, risk death? Do you want fights where the bad guys might win if you don't use good tactics and stuff? Or do you want easy walkover fights? Right? Which is it? And we're going to have a conversation about it because, again, there's the conflicting requests. They say they want challenging fights, okay. But then when we get into a situation where combat is likely to begin, what they will frequently do is try and use all kinds of abilities and bennies and conviction and everything else to make that fight as easy as possible. Right? So this is sort of contradictory. It would be like me saying, I want really tough fights, but I'm going to set it at -1. Right? Or I want really tough fights, but I'm going to give myself sets, and I'm going to leave it at +0. right? I want tough fights, so I moved it up to +3. And guys, I'd be on +4 if I were sure we could handle the elite bosses. But I want to see how the elite bosses go first. So her memory is in here somewhere. It's kidnapped, but I don't know where. It's usually up against the rocks, which is why I'm doing this over and over again, because it's usually right around here, and I'm probably missing it. Why do I get stuck on the bushes? This is one of these. I like the story of the story arc. There's her 98 memory. But I don't like the missions, because there are all these stupid outdoor missions where you have to defeat all or find... Look at this! Again, I missed! Come on with this! How many times? I like the story, but I don't like these outdoor missions where you have to, like, find one prisoner or one glowy or whatever, and there's like 8 possible spawn points, and you just gotta walk all over the map till you find the right one. So anyway, so my players are very, very inclined to try and rig the fight. Right? I've talked about this before. In Dungeons and Dragons, every battle that looked like it was going to be tough, my best friend on round 1 would cast slow. AoE on all the bad guys, and the bad guys would be unable to both attack and move, and then the players could just stay out of combat range with them and force them to move, or not be able to attack, or not be able to use one of their main attacks, or what have you, and they basically would just turn it into, you know, a meat grinder, where, well, not even a meat grinder, they just turn it into punching bags, right? They're just basically beating on these things until they die, and it's just doing hit points. And there were a couple of battles where I just, like, when they got the bad guys down to like 10 or 15 hit points, I just said it's dead, because I didn't want to keep running the battle. It was boring. Like, this is boring. You're just fighting guys that can't fight back. Guys, this happened to me in City of Heroes, and I complained about it as a player when my friends were doing it. So this goes back to launch COH, right? The first, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months of the game. I'm playing Liberty Last, my, at the time, Fire Invuln tanker, sidekicked up. She was in the 20s, and I think the group was in the early 30s or late 20s, and she was like 23 or something. I think it was around that. And another one of these. And so we had this guy named Facade, my friend, the good Rob, was playing Facade. Brilliant guy, super smart. Yes, he's going to figure out the tactically good thing to do. So Facade has invisibility, right? Because illusion controllers, he's an illusion controller, so he has invisibility, so he can do what I'm doing, right? Wander around without being seen. He has invisibility. He has phantoms, which are these little guys, just like the phantasms that you throw in, that he could throw on a spot. So he could stand here and throw his phantoms over here, and these guys would all aggro to the phantoms. And so what he would do is he would throw the phantoms in. He'd come in here while everybody was facing the phantoms. He would flash. It's a PBAOE hold, and everybody would stand there with flashing going on in their eyeballs. It would make this little noise, and there's little flashes coming out of their faces, and nobody could move, and then the characters would come in and just own everything. It was pointless. Like, there was no risk at all. And for me, it was super frustrating, as this was in the days when tankers could really tank. Taunt was great. Your invulnerability or invincibility was really good. So what I wanted to do was tank huge spawns. And he would say, wait for me to flash. And he would go in, phantoms, invisible, flash. And then I would come in, and I was like standing over here plinking on one guy with my measly little tanker attack, because I had focus on slotting my defenses so that I could tank for them, and everybody's just beating on a bunch of helpless enemies that are standing there being beaten on, right? And after we did this for a mission or so, I was like, guys, I think I'm going to log off and get onto my scrapper. And they were like, why? I said, well, you don't need Liberty Lass. I said, it's really not. I said, it's not any fun. And they said, why isn't it any fun? I said, because I can't tank. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, the Phantoms go in and draw aggro. Facade flashes them, and you guys just beat up on helpless enemies. What do you need a tank for? I may as well get the Stalker. At least I can do some DPS. The Scrapper, at least I can do some DPS. And so, Rob was a nice guy. He said, oh, I don't have to do that every time. I can put the Phantoms away and stop using them. What would make it fun for you? And I said, well, it's not particularly enjoyable to know that my character is only of use because your character isn't using their powers as effectively as they could. You know what I mean? Like I'm a charity case. Okay, we'll go easy on the bad guys so you can actually have a role. That's not super fun for me either, knowing that. So I said, really, I think I just want to go get my scrapper, and I never played Liberty Lass with Facade again because it was just not fun. Now, he had an alt. I can't remember what his alt was. So what started his alt was lower level. So we started, he said, well, let's play with my alt. I can't remember what his alt was. I feel like his alt was a blaster. Oh no, he had a defender. Yeah. He said, okay, well, yeah, what was her name? Mel or something. And he said, all right, I'll play my defender when you're playing your tank, and I can heal your tank and you can tank for us. Right? So that's what we did. We swapped it out. But I don't know if I ever played Liberty Lass with Facade again, because it wasn't fun for me to be in an environment where I was just sitting there watching them beat the bad guys up and no risk. But even as my scrapper, it wasn't super fun for me either. Remember, we couldn't set these things on +4 times 8 or any of that. It was all +0, and we're in the 30s. You guys know what happens by the 30s. +0 is not that hard, right? Especially if you're in an effective group. So they were just too good. And, I played with them mostly to be social with them, but I had way more fun playing City of Heroes in 2s and 3s or by myself, where I could actually challenge myself at least a little bit. Now, again, City of Heroes wasn't super challenging back then because there wasn't a difficulty setting, but it was way better to face a boss solo than to have my teammates just paralyzing the whole spawn, and then we just sit there and beat up on guys and just doing hit points. I don't know why why anyone would think that's fun, but I don't. And I don't know, because my players have a tendency to try and maneuver the battle so that the bad guys are basically locked, unable to fight back, and they just pound on them till they die. And I don't think that that's fun. As a player, I don't find that fun, but maybe they do. And as a GM, I feel like, to some degree, my job is give them the experience they want. So if they say, look, we want to have battles where we can just lock everybody down and just pound on them till they die, I would say, okay, I can give you that. On the other hand, I might say, who wants to GM? Because I don't find that interesting. So I don't know if this is just coincidental, right? It sort of reminds me of, who was it? It was Gary Gygax in the Dungeon Master's Guide, who warned Dungeon Masters that players will do everything they can to break the game, and don't let them do it because they're going to be disappointed when they break it. And Luke Hart actually admitted that he does things on purpose to try and break the game, and then he's disappointed when it works. He's hoping the GM will stop him from doing it, and when the GM doesn't stop him from doing it and he breaks the game, he's disappointed that it worked. So, the players, again, do you know what you want? We're going to try and break the game, and then when we break the game, we're sad that it's broken. Maybe you shouldn't break it? What do you want? We want a challenge. Do you? Why do you keep breaking the game and getting rid of the challenges? Don't know, right? We're going to, like, I'm going to probably have to bring up familiars and say, look, just want to be honest to you guys. If I had been a player in our Rome game, I would have been really ticked, and I might have actually quit the game if it had gone on long enough. And I definitely would have been mad if I was the rogue, right? I said, I'm going to tell them we got very lucky. The guy who was playing the rogue fighter couldn't play with us, and I was basically playing his character as a what are her defenses? Well, let's just find Shyvana and then we'll see what happens. I was playing his character as an NPC. There's somebody talking. And so, as an NPC, who cares what the players do that steps on the NPC's toes? I don't care. But if we had been had an actual rogue in the party and the two mages are summoning their familiars, I'll take these guys out and then take her out. The two mages are summoning their familiars every single dungeon and exploring the whole dungeon while everybody sits around and waits. As a rogue, I would have been livid. Because you're basically negating my whole class with your stupid first level spell. I made my scout rogue to be the party scout. And I don't appreciate the sorcerer or the wizard getting a little owl and having the owl be the scout and scouting the dungeon all the way through while I sit there as a player with nothing to do while your stupid familiar takes my character's role. I really would have been ticked. And it's hard because what are you going to do? Tell them they can't use their spells? But unfortunately, right, and I've said this before, the DMs on D&D Beyond named Find Familiar as the most bannable spell. That one got the most votes, I'm pretty sure. The last time I looked, it was in the lead by far of the most votes for the most annoying spell in the game that they would like to ban. Beating out Counterspell, which the GMs also hated, and Summon Woodland Creatures. Those were listed as three of the most annoying spells, but Find Familiar won. And it was because of this. Because it's a spell of, it's like spoilers, but even if it weren't spoilers, it's stepping on the toes of another class. And I don't like when characters do that. So, but my party, right, did a whole bunch of risk-free dungeon exploration, avoiding many challenges with the use of their familiars. A couple times the familiars triggered traps. The familiars just died. The players paid $50, did a ritual, and resummoned after the battle, And so, that made dungeon exploration much safer. Is that what you want? Do you want trapless dungeons? I mean, I could just make dungeons that don't have traps, and then you don't have to worry about your character getting hit by traps. Is that what you want? Or do you want the interest of figuring out where the traps might be and how to deal with them, right? How to escape them or avoid them or what have you. And so I don't know, because my players have essentially, and I don't know how they think of it, and I don't know if that's how they view it, and I don't know what they're going to say, but my interpretation is you guys hit the I win button a lot. And that, as a GM, tells me that you want things to be easy, because that's what the I win button is. It's easy mode, right? So is that what you guys want? Or are you just trying different things, not knowing whether they're going to work or not, and not realizing how effective they're going to be? I'm not sure ignorance works as a defense for why they're doing it, because they also saw how effective some of their stuff was and kept doing it with the familiars, with the slow spell, in Deadlands with the speed spell, right? They see how wildly effective this stuff is and how powerful it makes them. They're doing it anyway. So, nobody's ever stopped and questioned it. Nobody's ever said, This is going to be a defeat all, isn't it? Nobody's ever said, should we do this? Questioned it. Right? Now, I don't know if this is peer pressure. Right? You could say, well, Scrapper, why haven't you said something? Well, they seem to be happy with it. And again, as a GM, my job is ultimately to make my players happy. So if they like it, I can certainly provide more of that. I don't necessarily like it, but I mean, you know, I could figure out things that might continue to make it interesting without it having to be like a challenging battle. Right? And look, I understand. I remember when the good Rob was GMing, and he had this really long scenario, and Champions, he was very, very good at making battles that were extremely close. And almost every single battle was down to the wire. Even against agents, he figured out how to do it and make it challenging. And one of the players actually said to him, Rob, I know these battles are exciting and all, but does every single battle have to come down to the absolute wire? We could have some battles that are just kind of medium difficulty, right? And I agree with that. I don't try to make every single battle a battle to the death. But when there is a battle to the death, they always seem to try and prevent that, or try to make it an easy battle. And that's been true in, whoops, no, not that. No, I don't want to do that. Escape. That's been true in both games we've played. Right? I mean, when they want to figure out answers, there have been a number of times when they've been able to mind read and stuff like that. And they have no hesitation about trying to just mind read their way into the answer, which is short-circuiting the whole entire problem-solving step. Right? The mystery. Again, they seem to try these things, and when it doesn't work, they're like, okay, let's see something else to try, and they go about and they do something cool, right? And then it becomes really interesting. Right? So like my best friend, and I don't want to just pick on him because the other players do it too. They all do it, right? But my best friend, they were trying to get into the Bard's College. This was a couple years ago in D&D. They were trying to get into the Bard's College and get information from the head Bard. And my best friend, you know, when they went to negotiate, the first thing he tried to do was charm person. First thing he tried to do was essentially mind control the guy and get him to tell him what he wanted, the information he wanted. So it failed. The guy saved, and because he was a pretty high-level wizard and he had a good save. So the guy saved, and he immediately knew what... if you fail a charm person, the other person knows you just tried to cast a spell on them. And in Rome, casting spells on people was illegal. Right? It was like considered the equivalent of assault and battery. Because if you can just cast spells on like a shopkeep, you could steal them blind. Right? So casting magic... You couldn't go around with weapons in the city, and you also couldn't go around casting spells on the streets or in the open. So he goes into the Bard's College, and he tries to charm the guy. And the guy basically says, I think you better get out of here before I call the Praetorian Guard. So they leave. And guys, they then decided that they wanted to break into the Bard's College and sneak in there. And we then had the cleric and the sorcerer went in. The other guy stood guard. No familiars. Those guys went in. And they had to avoid the traps and sneak in and get past the blocks, the shield spells and whatever else, and sneak around and avoid the guards that were on patrol. And we had one of the most awesome sessions of them sneaking and dodging, and the guys who were on lookout saw somebody coming in, and then they signaled them. It was so cool the way they set it up, and the various spells that they figured out to solve the problems, and dex rolls, and stealth rolls, and everything else, and they found some really cool lore information inside that one of the guys was super happy that they had found, because it told them, it explained some of what was going on. They loved it, and it was the most fun session, one of the most fun sessions we had toward the end game of that group. That was the last great session we had. The other ones were good, but I felt like we had several like really outstanding sessions, and that was sort of the last one. And then the campaign, we had some really good ones after that, but I don't think we had any as good as that. And that was one of our 2 or 3 best sessions in the entire campaign, which was like 40 or 50 sessions. This was like top tier. It was super fun. And the whole thing almost didn't happen because they almost just cast Charm Person and did an I win button and didn't do the rest of the encounter. Right? And so this is what I mean, right? Do you want to have the fun exploration, or do you just want an I win button? They enjoyed the fun exploration. They all talked about how much fun they had at the end of that session. But they also tried not to have that fun by doing the Charm Person. Like, what do you want? And that's going to have to be the question I ask them. Because as a game master, I can negate some of the things they do. And just say, it ain't going to work. Right? So, like, puppeting the Los Diablos. I don't know if I mentioned this because I was talking about the Devil Bulls. So the one guy told me yesterday, the day before yesterday, I think, he said, I took Puppet for my character for the advance. He took 2 powers, Mind Wipe and Puppet. They're reasonable for the character to have, but I said, I know what they're going to do. Right? As soon as I saw it, like, they don't know the Devil Bulls are coming. He didn't take it for that. But I know what he's going to do as soon as he sees the Devil Bulls show up. He's going to try to puppet them all. Takes 9 power points. He has the points to do it. He'll have all those power right at the beginning of the battle. He'll have most of his power points probably, right? So he's going to try to puppet all 9 of them. And he's not just going to puppet them. He's going to cast... Somebody's going to cast Boost Trait on him to give him D12 in the spell cast. He's going to turn on his Conviction to give him plus D6 to the spell cast. He's going to end up with like a 15 as an opposed spirit roll against the bulls that have a D8 in spirit. And he's going to get a success with a raise against them, which means not only can he give them a command, he can give them a command that they would very much not want to do, like kill yourself or kill your friends. Now, the bulls can't kill themselves or their friends. That can't happen. And they will get additional spirit rolls if they order him to do that, right? They order them to do that. But, if you're going to do that, and it's going to negate the whole encounter, that's telling me you don't want to have the encounter. Right? Now, again, I don't know if they're going to do it. They haven't done it. I don't know if it's going to work. We haven't run the session yet. But that's the kind of, conversation I think we're going to need to have. I don't want to have it in the middle of this campaign, right? I'm going to let them do whatever they want for this campaign. But then if, as I suspect, nobody else wants to GM, and if, as I suspect, I'm going to end up continuing to GM and being a forever GM, then I'm going to say to them, you guys need to tell me what level of challenge are we talking about here? And are you okay with me as a GM coming in and GM fiating away some of the things you're trying to do so that we have more challenging encounters? For example, you guys used to throw AoE slow on the entire room every time there was any sort of a challenging battle once the sorcerer got slow in Rome. It happened over and over and over again and took battles that could have been really nail-bitey and fun and challenging, like battling against 2 hydras with all those heads, that got completely negated with slow because they could only attack once a round instead of with all 5 heads, right? So that was negated by the slow, right? I could have done something to prohibit that. I could have just said it doesn't work on these particular hydras. I could have given them magical resistance. I could have made the rooms so big that they couldn't AoE slow them. And I actually tried to move the 2 hydras far enough apart, and I miscounted the hexes, and they were just 1 hex too close. And he was able to perfectly locate that AoE so it caught them both. I was ready to kick myself, right? But they wanted to do that, right? If he didn't want to slow them both, he could have just centered the slow on one of them. He said, let's do them both. Let's not have to fight hydras, essentially. Okay, so you did that to both of them. It turned them into bags of hit points, and you easily won the fight. Is that what you wanted? Or would you have rather had a really cool, exciting fight against 10 hydra heads, all snapping at you at once? Which, to me, sounds like a way cooler battle. Right? I don't know the answer to it. We're going to have that conversation. Because in Champions, I used to just take for granted in Champions that people wanted a good fight, and I would just on the fly, if I had forgotten to give the villain some kind of a defense against something the heroes could do, I would just add it to the character sheet. Right there. I was fast enough at Champions I could just go, okay, I'm going to give him 15 points of ego defense. Boom, 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 it's going to cost this much. Because I don't want them mind controlling this villain, and I forgot they could do that. You know, bad on me that I forgot to do it, but I'm not going to let these guys mind control this villain because it's going to ruin the battle. And I just GM fiated it. Nobody knew I was doing it generally, and I just did it. Like, for example, Overlord, who is my big ultra villain, for many, many years he had 1/2 energy damage reduction. He got it because somebody hit him with a really powerful N&D that he didn't have defense against, and I didn't want them to do that much damage to him, so I cut it in half. Right? And I just wrote on his sheet 1/2 energy damage reduction. And then later I figured out what the special effect was. I then kept that for the rest of Overlord's existence because it turned out he needed it as they got more powerful to work not only against that NND, the no normal defense attack, but against the other energy attacks they were throwing at him because they were throwing around 17 and 18 dice at the end when they were getting ready to retire. So he kept it. And then every time I brought Overlord back, I just left him with that power because I knew this way it protects him against no normal defense attacks. Right? So I just added it in the middle of a combat and I left it there. And they never knew I did it, and the battle was good and it was fun and it was exciting. Right? So I've done that before as a GM. But that essentially GM negated somebody's NND, which they spent 60 or 70 points on. So, you know, I don't know if they would get upset at a GM doing that. And that's going to be the question. Do you want me to, like, if you guys start doing something like that AoE slow in the middle of battle that's going to turn a combat into a slog, do you want me to allow it and just let it happen because that's what the dice say and that's what the rules say? Or do you want me to come in as a GM and essentially overrule that in the name of a more exciting battle? Because I can do either one, and the question is, which do you prefer as players? Right? Because I can almost hear my best friend saying, well, if you didn't want us to use slow in every battle, why didn't you give them some defense against it? And the reason I didn't was, A, that was a fourth or fifth level spell selection for him, and he only gets a few. So if he was going to waste one of his 3 or 4 spell options at that level on slow, presumably he's going to want it to work. I don't want to negate his powers. And 2, the fact that they kept doing it implies to me that they wanted to do it, right? Like, if you guys want an easy battle and I'm a GM and I want to give you what you want, I can give you an easy battle. I just don't know if that's really what you want, right? Is it a case, as Gary Gygax said, that they're breaking the game and then they're sad when they broke it because the battle was too easy? I don't know. I just don't know the answer to that. And it's the sort of thing where you can't really do it on Discord to discuss it. And I want to do it verbally, and we really haven't played that much, so I don't want to eat up an hour and a half of a session having this conversation. But yeah, I mean, I, of course, could have just said this flow doesn't work. I don't know if that's what they would have wanted. We have this great battle against a blue dragon. That one happened after the Bard. So that was the last epic session we had, I think. It was a blue dragon, and I was smart enough to have the blue dragon have these 2, like, what were they? Dust elemental or something servants that worked with it. And the dust elementals attacked the party and so on. And so they had... What the heck power did they... Oh, they had, like, Hold Monster. So one of the players had cast into a ring of spell storing Hold Monster, I think. And then I feel like another player had a scroll of Hold Monster or something, so they had 2 shots at it. And so they tried Hold Monster on the blue dragon, and it saved. And then they tried Hold Monster on the blue dragon, and it failed, but I used its legendary resistance to prevent it. So they tried it, and they tried it again. They tried it twice. If either of those had landed, and they had paralyzed the monster and just sat there and beaten on it, it would not have been an exciting battle. All of that really cool stuff that had happened in that battle wouldn't have happened. So, what I can't figure out is, do you guys really want Hold Monster to land on round 1 and not have the battle actually happen? Or did you want to fight the Blue Dragon? Like, for real? Now, I know casting Hold Monster on the Blue Dragon is part of fighting the Blue Dragon, but did you actually want it to succeed? Hold Person was an attempt that they did on the first really epic... On the first really epic battle that we did when they were 4th level, where they were fighting this Necromancer, and he was UNT, and Hold Person shouldn't have worked on him, but I didn't realize it, neither did my best friend, so it would have worked if he had succeeded at it, but the UNT kept saving, and he actually had a legendary save, so I wouldn't have let him get held like that. But my best friend kept trying to throw it on him. Every time he succeeded, he tried it again and again and again. And meanwhile, we're having this epic battle, which, if that had succeeded, none of the things that happened in that battle, because he summoned stuff, and he like had this really cool ability, a reaction ability, when one of his undead went down, he could say, "I'm not done with you yet." This was a Matt Colville idea, and they get back up with 1 hit point. And that reaction was awesome, and it just made these skeletons like actually a challenge, because they were killing them, they were dropping them down to 0 hit points, and then they were getting back up with 1 hit point and attacking, and then they were dropping them back to 0 hit points, and then the reaction, he could only do it like once per turn, and so they were killing more than one skeleton a turn, so they didn't, like, there were 8 of them, and then there were like 6 of them, but 1 got up, and then there were 4 of them, and 1 got up, and then there were 2 of them, and 1 got up, but it meant that they couldn't just kill the skeletons and ignore them, because they were getting back up. It was so cool, but if the guy had been held, he wouldn't have been able to do that, right? And then the bad guy was teleporting all over the map and attacking the guys from behind and doing all this cool stuff, because he had this ability to once per round teleport at will, like just and once per round he could teleport. I can't remember how I had it coded, but it was like Misty Step or something. It was really cool. And so with this epic battle, we played till 1:30 in the morning. Everybody kept saying we should go to bed, but we want to keep playing because this was so much fun. We had such a blast, right? It was one of our I think, probably the best battle we ever had in D&D or Savage Worlds. It was super fun and super exciting and super tense, and it was really interesting, and they were doing a dramatic task, a skill challenge with their bonus actions while they were doing the regular fight with their actions. It was so cool. None of it would have happened if they had held the guy and just killed him. Right? So, that's my point. Like, they kept trying to do it. So, they want to hold him while we're having this epic fight that couldn't have happened if you held him. And so I don't know. I think that Gygax is right, that when the players do something that kind of breaks the game, they're going to be disappointed when they do it. Well, gee, it would have been a cool battle if it had gone that way, right? Yeah, but you didn't let it happen because you held him. So I don't really know, right? I don't know if my best friend is going to say to me, "Scrapper, I was waiting that whole campaign for you to do something to try and block me from doing slow. I wouldn't have minded." I don't know. Right? I mean, you could say you should have made creatures that weren't vulnerable to slow. Okay, well, now your spell is useless. Did you want one of your 4th level spells to be useless? Did you see this miss again? I am so glad I have video evidence of these ridiculous 95% chance misses. And that's the mission. So yeah, I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think. My feeling is, as a player, I want to challenge. And if my supergroup or posse or whatever was doing things like what they did in City of Heroes, if they're doing things that are making my challenge as a player not be there, making it not be challenging because they're puppeting things or find familiar or whatever, eventually as a player I'm going to say something. I'm going to say, guys, like, I wanted to actually fight this battle. I didn't want to hold him and then we just kill him. I don't know what they're going to say to that. It's going to be an interesting question. Right? Because, like if this were Champions, and I was saying this to a friend of mine, if this were Champions with something like Puppet or like Mind Control, which is the Champions version of it, I would just give the guy mental defense, the bulls. I would add, it's not in the book, I don't care, I would just add it. But Champions, nobody dies. If I add stuff to the bulls and the party wipes or some of them die, then I'm going to feel like, okay, but maybe I shouldn't have added anything to the bulls, right? We actually have this Red Fortune. I mean, I don't mind making it and using it for another character, but I don't think this character needs it. We have a couple of them now, right? Yeah. We have like half the set. And this one's for resistance, but I don't have any resistance toggles, so. Anything else? Man, I have a lot of these now. Hey, there's Doctored Wounds. I mean, we already have it, but I'll make it for one of my other characters. And there's Crushing Impact. That's not bad. So there we go. That'll clear the salvage out a little bit. So Crushing Impact is a regular attack, right? Melee damage. I mean, we need one for Midnight Grasp and for Shadow Punch. So this thing has accuracy 7%, recharge time 5%. Like, I could stack that. Like, I've been trying to stack those. So I could see that. I could see doing Crushing Impact on Shadow Punch. Do we have any others? I do. We have two of those. Or are they the same one? No, they're two different ones. And are they both 48 and 50? Well, I mean, that's actually pretty good. So I feel like, so this is what I try to do. I try to collect a few, and then once I have 2 or 3 of these, it won't be that hard to buy the others. Oh, and we gotta put Doctored Wounds in here for some future characters. We now have 2 of the set. Not too bad. Do we have any more orange salvage? We have a little bit, so we'll put that away. Yeah, I have to tell you, it was super frustrating at all this orange salvage, and the ones I needed to make the sets that I was making, I didn't have. I had a couple, but I ended up having to buy like more than half of them. All right, guys, that was quite the rant today. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys like the really ranty stuff, or you'd rather have me more talking about COH. Let me know in the comments. Although it'll probably be too late for this character. Oh, jeez, what am I doing in here now? It'll probably be too late for this character, but for my next character, if I know that people rather I stop ranting and just focus more on COH, I can easily do that. So let me know. But I think that's it. We'll stop there, guys. This has been Souling the Stalker, and until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes on the Homecoming server. Have a good one.